and good afternoon. Welcome to Let's Talk Personal. I am your host, as always, Frances Reimers, and clearly not afraid to wear white in the winter.
I love the white.
Thank you.
And I love the necklace. You're gorgeous.
Beautiful. Thank you. Stop. So early in the show, so early. Thank you for joining us again this week. If you would like to join us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at LTP Brand Radio or on Instagram at Let's Talk Personal. If you'd like to talk personally to me, and I know you do, you can do so on Instagram at Firestarter CEO and on Twitter at Your Firestarter. Yes, I do have a company. It is called Firestarter. You can find out more about it at www.yourfirestarter.com. We have a very exciting show this week. With me is probably one of my favorite people in the whole wide world.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Executive Director for the Child and Family Network Centers, Lisa Carter.
Yay. Oh my God, that's so sweet of you to say that. But you're one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, too.
Stop.
And people know that you're one of our board members, too?
Yes.
They do. They know that?
I mean, everyone who knows me pretty much knows that. I don't think the larger Let's Talk Personal community is aware. But yes, I am a current board member for CFNC. And how I became a board member was many years ago when I worked for another organization. We were allowed to have a pro bono client every year, and a program that I started at that company. And the very first year out of the gate, CFNC applied to be our pro bono client, and we selected them, and we were off to the races.
We were so lucky to have you as our communications person. I mean, we don't know anything about communications, so
that's a lie. You do too.
We know a little bit, but we're a small nonprofit in Alexandria, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
We are a little preschool, so we serve 138 kids every year, and we came to you because we're the best kept secret in the whole wide world. I think, that's what we keep saying. We're the best kept secret. Not anymore, because we have Frances helping us with our communication. So it's changed a little bit.
I think that is a gem of a message point, because you really are one of the best kept secrets in not just in Alexandria, but in the nonprofit community as a whole, which is why I was happy to have you as a pro bono client and then also be on the board of directors currently. But for the larger audience who is not aware, give us the whole message point. What is CFNC? Who does CFNC serve?
Yeah, so the Child and Family Network Centers was started in 1984. A group of moms, 17 of their kids, failed out of kindergarten. Who knew you could fail out of kindergarten, right?
I did not know that.
I didn't know until I started at this organization. So these 17 kids, they actually failed them out of kindergarten. Their mom said, oh my God, what are we going to do? How can they move on and grow in their life and succeed in school without having that fundamental kindergarten education? Right. But what they really needed was a fundamental preschool education to get there. So they hired a teacher, 17 moms from a low-income community in Alexandria, and the teacher trained these children in 10 months, one school year for preschool, right? And they got to kindergarten, and then they were gifted. So that's the program that we do currently. There's so many children who, a lot of people are familiar with Head Start, right?
Yes,
you know about
of course,
Head Start.
yes.
So we're not Head Start, right? Head Start is for those that are at the poverty level and below, which in the United States is what, I don't know, $24,000 a year for a family of four. It's nothing, right? So that's the federal poverty level. So our families are making $26,000 on average a year for a family of four. So I'll repeat that. $26,000. So if you can imagine, you live in Alexandria, I live and the rent there is
a lot,
right?
I spend more than $26,000 in rent every year.
Right. And so say you have a family of four, that's two kids.
Right.
Preschool education costs what, $10,000-$20,000 per child. So that's your whole income. Right. And so you can't afford it.
Right.
So we work with what we call the working poor. These families are doing everything they can to do the right thing for their kids, and they just can't afford it. So we provide the preschool education. Most of our families are not only low income, but they're coming from other countries. They're speaking another language. Right. So they're really, trying to navigate through the system with a little bit of money, and giving these kids the preschool education is the foundation that they need to be successful in life.
Right.
Right. Because if they don't come to us and we don't see them, what happens? They start school 2 years behind.
And they literally fall through the cracks.
Yeah. Literally, they fall through the cracks. Yeah.
And your role, like, this isn't your first day on the job at CFNC. You've been there a hot minute. So talk a little bit how you came to the organization and where you are within the organization now.
Yeah, so I started at CFNC in 2014, and I was the director of development for several years. So I was raising the funds for the organization because it is a nonprofit.
Right.
We get a little bit of money from the state, we get a little bit of money from the city, and
Right.
we raise 50% of our budget. So
Right.
it's a lot for any nonprofit. If people are familiar with nonprofits, many nonprofits raise 10, 20% of their budget.
Right.
We're raising 50, 60% of our budget.
Right.
So a tough job to raise the funds for the organization. Did
Yes.
that for several years.
Right.
Worked with some other executive directors, and then
Yes.
this opportunity came up and was promoted to executive director in January of this year.
Yes, and it's so funny, like, I digress, but when it was time for Lisa to move up the ladder, we had a coffee, and she was not sure she was going to get this position. And this is where it's so important that you have sane, rational people around you when you're having moment of crazy, because you did not know the value of your own brand.
I still don't know the value of my own brand. That's why I need
I
you.
wasn't going to throw you under that bus, but it was amazing to me. Like, I was sitting there in that Starbucks with you, and you're like, you legit were like, I don't think I'm going to get this job. And I'm like, who the F else is going to get the job? Like, who? But you! But it, really, you weren't sure. And there was no one else. So for those who don't know, Lisa is the development ninja. She is this little sneaky development ninja.
I like to be called sneaky.
And your stealth. She's right up on you. She's like, hello. And in previous
people, I do not do that to people. Hello.
Yes, she does. But so prior to CFNC, you were at the USO, you were at Alzheimer's. I mean, you've worked with some heavy hitter organizations. Talk a little bit about, the challenges of development in the nonprofit world and getting people to give year after year after year. Because, you know that probably better than anyone else I know.
It's hard. It is difficult, but it's really giving people the opportunity to find joy in something that they want to give to, right? And giving them that moment of really feeling good about what they're doing. Right. And so all of those other jobs, I was just building relationships. And this is essentially what I'm doing here still, but now it's expanded to not just building relationships with donors, it's building relationships with my board members.
Right.
Trying to be nice to, no, I'm just
Hey, I get it. We're high maintenance.
I'm totally kidding.
We're super high maintenance.
I love our board. Our board is actually pretty magnificent.
We're pretty funny, yeah.
Yeah, you are a good crew. And it's building relationships with the staff too.
Yes.
So it's broadened, to the community and to other organizations within the community, to city councilors, to other people that can help grow this organization, right? And so I continue to use those relationship building skills, and I tell my staff, like, when you're building relationships, it's one-sided. So it's not like you and I, we have a friendship, you call me, I call you.
Yes.
Oftentimes it's you just calling, or you just sending.
So my dating life, no, just
right?
kidding.
Yeah. No,
sorry.
I know. But
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, a little bit different. Serious. Get serious.
A little bit different. So it's just really taking that time to nurture those relationships.
I think what a lot of people don't realize about nonprofit leadership is that it's political. And you moved from a role where you were all about building relationships, and you are now at this new level too.
Right.
But there is an extra special level of politics that gets played in this.
Right.
Were you ready for that? Were you aware of it? And
No.
how have you handled kind of taking that on?
I think that was the one thing that I did not realize. I was like, I'm great at building relationships.
The best.
But when you're maneuvering through the political landscape, you have to be very careful about what you say. And I tend to be pretty blunt.
But it's always so nice when you say it.
It is. I do it in a nice way. I say it in a nice way.
In the world. It's like
hopefully I'm not saying F you, but I do it in a nice way. Yes.
Politely.
And so I had to really take a step back and say, okay, there's sometimes where I cannot say some of these things and reserve some of what I'm saying and strategically think about that. So I think that's the other thing that I've learned is sort of the strategy, because I'm very good at tactical, delivering on the action steps, getting things done.
Yes.
And so I have to take a step back and think about the big picture before I start taking action.
And I think Alexandria is where we are in Alexandria, Virginia. I don't think Alexandria politics is unlike any other jurisdiction. There's old boys, there's new boys, there's change that's coming about, and how do we as a small teeny tiny organization fit into that changing dynamic? And that's something as a board, and I know that you're thinking about constantly, and why we're taking meetings with councilmen and up-and-coming leaders in the community, because where does it start? It starts, fundraising and building those relationships starts with us being on the ground floor and getting people aware of our brand right from the start.
Right, and I think, currently there's a really great opportunity for CFNC because, we've worked with you, but we've also done a lot of work with the board, and we've done a lot of work as an organization, and the changes that we've made, you mentioned change, but the changes that we've made as an organization fundamentally have been, transition. They're huge. They're just transitional for the organization. I mean, for those that don't know CFNC, we had some issues with budgeting and money, just a few challenges.
Just some challenges,
and we had a board that had been there for a long time. We had a founder that had been there for a long time.
Yes.
So making change for us, we had a new board president that came in, a new executive director. So the change was good for us. Some people came off the board. We did a lot of governance work in order to get to the board where it needed to be. We created all of these committees, and the committees that,
we have committees on committees.
But they're working really hard.
Doing a lot of work.
They're doing a great job, right? And so
the facilities committee, they're working hard.
They found some great location. They're doing a great job.
They're good people.
And so we are in a really good position, and we balance the budget, right? And so now, the message, into the community is such a positive one for CFNC. We have done this hard work, right?
Yes.
And now we're in a position to really grow and be able to be that organization that the community looks to serve these kids, because we're in a good position.
And we have been recognized for this hard work and this change and this growth. We were a finalist just a month ago, or maybe a month and a half ago. And remind me again the name of the organization that was giving us
I knew
the
you'd
award.
ask that. And, oh my gosh. And why can't I think of
Council
it right now?
on Foundations?
No, that's not it, but we'll come up with it
We'll
before the
figure
end
it
of
out.
this. Yeah.
But we were, the bottom line of all of this is that we were awarded and recognized for our growth as a board, and that a lot of that had to do with Lisa and her leadership and kind of getting the ducks in a row, because with nonprofits, and all of you out there who have ever served on a nonprofit board, who have worked for a nonprofit, it can be sometimes a little like herding cats. And getting everybody in lockstep and getting everybody looking in the same strategic direction for the organization is tough. And there has been leadership changes multiple times over, which makes it even more difficult for an organization to get its footing. Donors are always like, what's going on here? It gets a little shaky, but
now there's stability.
There's stability.
Yeah.
All thanks to Lisa being awesome. But we're gonna take a break so she can breathe. She thought we were just on the radio and no one
almost
would
wore
see
my
her.
jeans.
I mean, you could have worn your jeans. We're gonna take a break
and done my hair and my makeup. Oh my gosh. Okay.
When we come back, we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into the actual community that CFNC serves and how it is surviving in this political climate. So stay right there, and we'll be right back. And thank you, and welcome back. And we did get the name.
We did. Thanks to Maggie.
Thanks to Maggie. Thank you, Maggie. What was it?
The Center for Nonprofit Advancement. You forgot already.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it was like in one ear and out the other. Yes, that is who we were a finalist for the award, and that's terrible. I wrote the press release. Shame on me. God. I'm getting old timers. I think I'm getting like weird.
It happens to me too.
It's a lack of sleep.
Yeah,
it's
I
a
know.
lack of sleep.
Life is too busy, right?
It is too busy.
So busy, but it's so busy.
It is too busy. I mean, for me, it's a good thing, but busy means I'm making money, but it's just too much in the brain. Okay, so before we left for the break, I did allude to the fact that when we came back, I wanted to dive a little bit more into the populations that CFNC serve, and this is important on a lot of levels right now. Early childhood education is important regardless. But in our political climate and other things that are going on in the education system, I think the need for early childhood education is becoming more and more and more paramount. So talk a little bit more about the services that CFNC provides and its value to the long-term success of these kids.
Yes. Where do I get started, right? So we do so many things. So we provide preschool to these kids. They're 4 years old, and we have them for 10 months, right? And so we have a very short time to change their lives. They start way below where they would be normally because they've never seen the inside of a classroom.
Right.
So we score them at the beginning of the year, and we see levels that are very low. But by the end of the year, their scores are 2 times, 3 times the national average. So they have learned a lot within that 10 months.
Right.
And so we have what we use is the high scope curriculum, which is very good for multicultural families. You mentioned we have a lot. We have 19 countries and 7 languages that we represent this year. Last year, I think it was 21 countries and 13 languages. So it varies every year.
Right.
And you're right, we can't cover all of those languages.
Right.
So our teachers speak Spanish and English. We have one Amharic speaking teacher too, the Ethiopian community, right?
Yes,
so,
yes.
And so then we have some Middle Eastern kids too, but we don't speak all of these languages.
Impossible.
And,
that would be very difficult.
Right. So they're speaking whatever language when they come in.
Right.
And so by the end of the year, most of them are speaking English. And so we test them at the end of the year. We see instrumental gains in their language ability. And so hopefully they're not going into an ESL classroom. And addition to that preschool education that we provide, we cover some health services. So the kids are getting hearing, vision, dental, speech screenings, right? Because if I have a toothache or if I cannot see the board, I can't learn. So we need to cover all of these things because a lot of these kids, where they grew up, where mom and dad grew up, they don't go to the dentist. So they've never seen a dentist. What do you do? Do I brush my teeth? No, we don't know that. So it's teaching them all of those things so that they are prepared for school as well.
And isn't that amazing that, that was one of the things that really blew my mind when I started working with you guys years and years ago was, we as Americans, we take it for granted that people understand that you need to brush your teeth or that if you can't see the board, you need to do something about it. It just blew my mind that legitimately is not common knowledge if you grow up in other parts of the world. In other parts of the world, it's you just deal with it. That's the hand you were dealt. And
you just don't know, and you may not know that you don't see well because this is how you've always seen. And so when we test the kids, there's 138 children. Every year there's at least one classroom, maybe a classroom and a half, that need glasses. Yeah. So that's a huge chunk of kids when you think there's 22 out of 138 who didn't know they needed glasses. Oh my gosh, right?
Right.
And then for many of our families, mom and dad, have an 8th grade level education or less. So a lot of our parents don't speak, are illiterate in their own language. So when they come to the United States, it's really difficult for them to be able to figure out, they can't read in their own language, so they're not being able to read the bus sign.
They're just trying to survive.
Right. They can't, transportation is difficult, all these things are difficult. So our kids, we talk about, we want to be the first to go to college, right? Yeah. Well, these kids are actually the first to read or write.
Right. Which is, I mean, that alone blows my mind. And so talk specifically, what do the kids do every day? What are they doing? I know what they do every day, and it's a lot of fun. I wish that's what I did every day. Yeah. But talk about the skills and the activities that they participate in. So, because, I mean, that is a massive jump from when the kid comes in. I mean, of course, they're little sponges at that age, but that is a massive jump from here to here. So what activities do they do? How do the teachers get them so far so fast?
they're doing all the regular activities you would do in school, right?
Right.
You're learning your math, you're learning your English, your ABCs, and
Right.
all of the letters, and you're getting all of those fundamental skills that
Right.
you need
Right.
to be able to survive in kindergarten. And I say survive because if you're way behind, you're not going to be able to catch up. So,
I mean, kindergarten's a battleground.
it
was tough.
Well, and when you think about it, a lot of people probably don't know, but so for instance, say Elijah, who is my
He's so
you
cute.
Adore this
He's
kid,
so
right?
cute. Yes.
So Elijah has come to us in September,
Right.
right? And so when I think about him, and I think of what's all the great things that are going to happen for
Right,
him,
right.
So his language ability, right, in preschool
Right.
dictates his language ability in kindergarten and in first grade. So
Right.
if he doesn't have the language ability now,
Right.
he's going to be behind, like we said, right?
Right.
And his language ability in third and fourth grade, or his language ability in kindergarten and first grade, dictate what he's going to be. His language ability will be in third and fourth grade, right? And
Yes.
so when you think about that too, if he's not reading at the appropriate level in third grade, so
Right.
we know at third grade, if he's not at the right level,
Right.
then what happens? He's going to drop out of school.
Yep.
It declines from there, right?
Right.
So he's more likely to drop out of school. All of those things start to spiral for this child.
At the third grade.
And then, and since he is an African American child,
Right.
the odds are even further against him, right?
Right.
And coming from a low income family,
Right.
the odds almost quadruple for this child
Right.
too. So all of those things can change with a preschool education.
Right. Right. And it's so vital. I mean, again, another thing that I think a lot of people take for granted, that who you are as an individual is pretty much cemented by the third grade. That blows
Look,
your
you know,
mind.
you've probably heard this, but prisons, do you know
Yes,
this?
yes.
That prisons actually look at third grade reading levels and decide populations in the future based on the kids' reading level in the third grade. So they can,
No,
right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean,
so they will determine how many kids they're going to get in prison based on third
so
grade reading
the
levels.
U.S. Center for federal prisons, they look at the number of those who read at level in the third grade, and that statistic. So when they determine how many prisons are needed,
Right. What's the growth going to be?
right, they look at that number. Well,
Down the road,
there
right?
you go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane. But we have organizations in place to help change that tide. And these, like CFNC and other organizations that provide early childhood education.
Yes.
And
My favorite statistics around this are the money statistics.
yes,
You
of
know,
course.
and so if you have a child who drops out of school
Right.
and then spirals and all of these bad things start happening
Right.
and they go through the system,
Right.
what do you think the costs are to the American taxpayer?
I'm sure it's upwards of millions over a child's life.
Over their life, it's $300,000.
Okay.
Right? $300,000, that's what it costs your community
Right.
to pay for the services that this person might need as they grow into adulthood.
Right.
And so when you look at the opposite
right,
direction, when you look
right.
at preschool,
Right.
the investment in preschool, so they say your investment of $1, just $1,
Right.
in a child for preschool,
Right.
compounded over the life of that child, so then they become wonderful citizens who are giving back, who get a great job, who go to college, who do
Right.
all these great things that we want for everybody in
Right.
the world,
Right.
compounded by a 7 to 17% interest annually
Right.
is what people say.
Are you doing this on a
Are
board?
you-
so you
I don't
can
know.
keep track?
You got the math. The math is about $10,000 back into the community.
Right.
Right. So
Okay.
them giving back.
So
in
rather
taxes
than a
and
$300,000 loss,
we have a $10,000 benefit
right?
by
There it is.
investing $1. Right.
$1 in a child is
Yeah.
gives back to the
it's so
community.
worth it, right? And then
I
and you
mean-
see these children and the success. I mean, I know they're going to
Yes.
be successful, and I know Elijah is soaking up everything he
He
can
is.
every day in the classroom, and he's just a love, and he's going to be successful, and it's because not only of his hard
Well,
work.
someone gave him a chance.
Yep.
It's all about giving these children a chance at being what they could be.
Yes.
Because
And then working with those parents too. That's
Right.
the other thing that we do.
Yes.
And mom's working really hard, dad's
Right.
working really hard too to support their children
Right.
and give them everything they need and get
Right.
ready for getting into school.
because
and
this
being-
organization, CFNC doesn't just the
Mm-hmm.
parents just drop off the kids and say, do something good with this.
Mm-hmm.
CFNC really is an organization that tries to engage the entire family, so that
right.
because everything that you guys do at the centers is pointless if the kid goes home and mom and dad are like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what this is. It has to be reinforced at home. And so you're creating an environment so that it's getting reinforced at home.
It's a whole holistic approach is what we like to say.
Holistic approach.
Right. You like that word?
I do. So a little over 70% of CFNC's current student population is Latino. Given the current administration and its stance on immigration and other issues, has there been any issues, any concern with the parents or the students at CFNC, or is it kind of a non-entity? Is it not talked about, not an issue?
We look at, we say 70% are Latino, but there are from so many different communities. There's so many different backgrounds,
Yes.
All Central America, South America,
Right.
Spain, everywhere is this Latino community. So
Right.
we have to look at each family individually.
Right.
It's
Right.
not just lump them all together and
Right.
this is the issue that they're all facing.
Right.
So it's really a one-on-one basis with these families and working with them
Right.
and finding out what they need and
Right.
servicing those needs. When I look at it overall, yes, the changes in the administration, we are feeling some of those fears in the community.
Right.
There is some uncomfortableness. Last year,
Right.
I think it was probably worse than this year.
Right. It's kind of eased out a little bit.
It's eased out a
Yeah.
little bit, and last year we had one child whose dad was deported
Yep.
back to Nicaragua.
Right.
And how difficult is that for a child? Because he's telling us,
Traumatizing.
yeah, and he's just Skyping with dad. Dad's not at home. He's Skyping
Right.
with dad every night so he can see dad.
Right.
But then those emotional issues, the social issues that come up.
Because they don't know, they don't understand it, so they act out in class, and it's a domino
Right.
effect to the other kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's
so
challenging.
we have those social workers that work with the children in social skills groups, work with the families too, and help to alleviate some of that. And then
Right.
teaching those families those skills at home to
Right.
help with those social issues. And
Right.
the teachers have those same skills. And so we work as a group with all of the staff too to make sure everybody's using those same skills with those children. But,
Right.
so we do feel that. I think that there's been in that community, like not too long ago, I heard that there was a police car at the CVS, and
Okay.
and there's some difficulty understanding what is that ICE, and so the message gets out to the community. Oh my God, ICE is at the CVS. Everybody runs home and hides, right?
Right,
and
right.
they're not coming out into the community because there's this fear in the community
Right.
that that's what's happening, and so
Right.
it's also a misunderstanding. Obviously, there's some, the language too is not
Right, is a challenge
Is a
as
challenge.
well. It's amazing how, a lot of people, I think we get very narrow focused in our day about these issues.
Yeah.
They're not really real to people like you and I, because it's, we're not going to get deported. We go
Right.
back home to our nice
Right,
homes
right,
and
yeah.
live our lives. But this is real. And these are little children that we're dealing with here. They aren't able to discern what is rumor, what is not. They're hearing what is coming from mom and dad,
Yeah.
and that does play a huge role in their school, in their psychological and sociological development. And if everything is being developed by grade 3, we need to do all that we can to kind of keep them in an innocent bubble for as long as we possibly can. I think we forget that as a society, that we have to keep these kids, I don't care, black, white, brown, yellow, whatever. We have to keep them as innocent for as long as we possibly can, because it affects them for the rest of their life. And we don't, we don't want to untangle
Right.
problems that could have been taken care of
Right.
early on in life. One thing that CFNC does to help create a long-term level of success for these kids is you keep a record of the child and how they progress during the year. And the school that takes these children on next when they go to kindergarten and whatnot could access this information if they wanted to help keep this going.
Right.
So we're working on trying to get that in the hands.
And we've had some of the classrooms ask for that information, so we are passing some of that along so that they have the history of the kids. So
Right.
they're just more well equipped.
Yes.
We've done a lot of the work already for
Yeah.
them. So, why reinvent the wheel? Why start from the beginning when
Exactly.
they can have this information?
And our teachers, our public school teachers are already dealing with so much. Why not give them something to help have a leg up so they can help these kids as best as humanly possible? So it's a great thing that you guys are doing. But I bet many of you who are frequent watchers of the show are like, Francis, why aren't we talking about brand? Why aren't we talking about social media?
What are we talking about?
We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we will talk about Lisa's lack of brand and social media.
That's true.
So stay right there. We'll be right back. Not shocking, we were delayed because I was talking about my love of rompers, and I mean, I really do love rompers.
Frances is going to have her own brand someday.
I did reach out to someone to ask them if they would like to develop a line of rompers for me. The conversations are going very well thus far.
Great.
I mean,
I'll be buying your first romper that you put out there.
Romper.
Yeah, I got it.
They're so comfortable. Why would every woman not want to live their life in a romper? They're flattering on every figure. Anyway. Before we went to break, I alluded to the fact that Lisa has no brand, no social media presence.
It's true.
So we're going to talk about that because that has been a very strategic move, I think. But first, CFNC has slowly been dipping their toe into the social media pool in the 3+ years that I've been involved with you.
Right.
What has been the outcome of that, and how have you as an organization felt a direction either way by getting yourselves more visible on social media.
I think any advice we can get from you is fantastic. And I mean, it's so helpful. It is because we don't have a staff that we don't have anyone trained on social media or in
but Maggie,
communications.
you're great.
Oh,
Maggie's
no,
great.
Yeah, and Anna too. Hi, Anna. No, they do fantastic.
Yes.
We all do a great job,
Yes.
but no one's really trained in it.
Right.
So
Right.
the strategy behind it, we're posting and we're saying thank you to donors. We're posting and, something happened in the classroom today, which is great. All of that stuff is fantastic, but there's no real
Cute kid
strategy.
pictures
And that's
always
where
win.
you come in, right? Yeah.
Right. Well, and the other board members, you need to get on social media and connect with me. It's vital for an organization who is trying to raise above the fold, that we get out there in that space and manipulate that space so that people see what we're doing. And it's really surprising to me how many charities and nonprofits, they're like, well, we don't have anybody trained, so we're just not going to do it. You got to figure it out. Like, this is the new frontier.
Right. Get a volunteer or, pull somebody in. Because we've posted, too, on, just volunteer sites. And some people will say, okay, we'll do that for you for free, which is great. Or we have, interns that come in and they'll post.
Right.
So, it's helped us to get a little bit there.
Right.
Right. But we need to take the next step. And I don't know if you would, I would love to hear your advice for, we have 200, 300 followers on Facebook. So how do you grow that in order to make it worthwhile to spend all that time?
Well, the key factor for a small organization like ours is the board. One,
say that again.
The board, because think about it, we have 16 people? How many?
15.
15 people on the board.
Uh-huh.
That's 15 media streams. Instead of one media stream being the organization, we now have 15 potential media streams. And every single one of our board members is on at least one platform, LinkedIn.
Everybody's on LinkedIn.
Everybody is on LinkedIn,
Right. Yep.
probably on Facebook too, because they're sharing pictures of the kids, the grandkids, whatever. That's 15 times 2. Think about all of the eyeballs that are on that on any given day. I mean, somebody like Lisa. You're Lisa. Who am I thinking of? I am having serious Alzheimer's
on the board?
today.
Someone on the board.
Yes, she was sitting literally right next to me at the development meeting.
Emily.
Emily.
Mm-hmm.
Someone like Emily. Someone like Pablo.
Yeah.
I mean, that just know thousands of people. If they're posting on a regular and frequent basis, showing great things that we're doing, showing their love and interest in the organization, think of how many eyeballs that is. And it's all about influencers, right? Like, I have my pocket of influence, Pablo has his pocket of influence, Pete, Kate, we all have our social networks. And if we share our love and our passion for an organization, people get excited what other people are excited for, and so if they show that, it gets more and more people on board.
I agree, because we don't have the followers, but if you have,
I have the
what do you
followers.
have? How many followers do you have?
I have almost 3,000 on Twitter. I have.
See, that's amazing. So, one post from you reaches those 3,000 people, although we're only reaching a few hundred with what we post.
Right.
But then you compound that by the 15 board members, and we're reaching thousands
of
of
people. And so the board is our biggest source of ripple effect.
Yeah.
Because right now, with our 200 followers, we're just preaching to the choir right now.
Right.
If every board member posted something on a regular basis, that ripple starts to go further out. The other piece of that puzzle is building relationships with local politicians, with local media, and getting them to like and allow things that we're doing to go viral. That's the next ripple.
Yep.
And we're kind of doing that. That ripple effect is an offline that becomes an online. So this is something that a lot of people, a lot of individuals and a lot of organizations don't get, that has been successful in my life, is you meet somebody offline and build a relationship there, and then you take it online and they start liking and following and retweeting things that you do. Sometimes it's the offline relationship that turns into an online influencer relationship, and that's something that a lot of organizations they bypass that. It's we know this person in real life, but we're not engaging this person in an online space. You gotta do both. Those high level donors, if they're online, Engage them online. You've already built a relationship with them offline. Take it online. Profile them as a donor if they want to be profiled. Profile them.
I see so many different opportunities as you're talking about that. And even like staff, for instance.
Yes.
Staff has a huge amount of people that there are also
the teachers, the social workers,
Yeah.
all of these people. They have pockets of influence that I will never be able to reach, that you will never be able to reach, and people love talking about things that they love and that they're passionate about if you provide them the platform, the words, the pictures to do it. And so all of those fingers are there.
Yeah.
And why organizations don't, organizations are like, the board must give X amount of dollars to be on the board. That's great because we need hard dollars to do what we need to do. But it's always shocking to me that boards, nonprofit organizations don't require that each board member has to tweet so many times in a year about the organization or post X amount of pictures.
I hear that coming for our board.
Yes. It's coming. It's coming like a freight train. Because I'm sorry, like, obviously I'm biased because this is what I do for a living, but that in itself is currency. Your brand online is currency. I don't care if you're an athlete or a celebrity or an organization or executive director of a nonprofit, your online brand is currency. And the reason we have people on our board, and we have a very prestigious board, these people have currency that you and I won't be able to touch because it's not our group. And so having people talk, and so that helps expand that layer of influence. Reaching out to the media, reaching out to local politicians, that helps expand. Engaging with influencers within the early childhood education world helps grow it.
Lots of
even
big
more.
buckets that we're just not touching. So
There's
I feel like
honeypots all over the place that we're not touching.
Right. So
and we're not alone, by the way.
But I think we need to do this, and
Right.
and I really want to make a huge effort to do this, and I'd love to come back in like a year and say, here's what we did, and here's the success that we saw, because then I think that proves that it really does work, right?
It really does work, and a lot of organizations, I think they get very overwhelmed. They hear this and they're like, "Fuck."
And they don't have a Francis on their board.
They don't, and shame on them for not asking. at least you asked. So many people
don't ask. No, I'm saying don't ask you. We don't want you to pull your time away from us. So no way. I'm protective.
I think you're the only person who wants me all to yourself. But yeah, a lot of people don't look within their own ranks. They look at their staff and they're like, well, we don't have anybody on the staff that will do this. You won't hesitate for a second to pick up the phone and ask me to write a $5,000 check. Instead of doing that, pick up the phone and call someone who's like a social media guru and have that be the exchange. Consider them a high-level donor for helping you get your message out there. Because to me, like I said, that's just as much as currency. But you yourself have been social media phobic. I call it a phobia. I think it's a phobia. I
don't like to promote myself, and I think that's where I run into trouble.
Right. It's not promotion, Lisa. It's not promotion. But this is I'm picking on her, but she illustrates a very common point that I hear a lot with women, that they think it's promotion. It's not. And so why have you felt it's promotionally when you're in a job that requires you to be visible and making connections?
You're absolutely right. And I look at organizations, I don't know if you've heard of Charity Water, and their CEO does an amazing job. He posts videos of himself all the time.
Right.
And it's so educational, and people love it. And so yes, I hear you. I need to make some changes. I agree.
This is not an intervention, Lisa.
Is that why I'm here? Is that why you brought me here?
There's not someone who's going to come out of the corner and turn this into an intervention. I found it interesting because, I think you're probably one of the most engaging people I know in person. And so the fact that you haven't tried to engage online. I mean, when did you get your Instagram account? Like 5 seconds ago?
You can tell. I mean, I think you've seen it, and there's 3 pictures on there. One of the dog, and maybe one of my nieces. Yeah, I know.
it's you work in a fun organization
with great photos. So why wouldn't I post these pictures? I know of these beautiful kids. Yes. I don't know why. Why am I not doing that? I'm going to start.
Did you know? So this is an actual fact. There was a large study that was done just last year, and women are far less likely to actually even complete their LinkedIn profile than men. And when women do complete their online file, they share 11% fewer of their wins, their successes, than their male counterparts. They literally omit things off of their profile that their male counterparts would happily list away.
That's interesting.
And because of it, they're, a lot of recruiting is moving to an online platform, and it's keyword based. And so a lot of women are getting actually bypassed because they're not putting their information out there or giving the breadth of information that their male counterparts would, and thus getting left behind because of it. Were you aware of that little factoid?
I was not aware of the little factoid, but I will say that probably my LinkedIn account is where
it's the most robust.
Right.
It is the most robust.
Yes.
Of all of your platforms. Was it for you? Was it just? Was it content creation? Was it which piece you felt that it was promotional, but was it,
I think there's a lot of content.
I don't want to talk about me all the time.
I don't want to promote myself, right? I don't know. It's just I'm not
lady.
Right. I
Would
give other
you have
people
the
credit
same conversation with another female executive? Would you tell her that it's promotional?
No, I wouldn't. So why? I know. Slap my hand. I'm in trouble.
It blew my mind. I was like, you are moving, especially when you moved in the ED role. Yes. I was like, okay, when you were in the development director role, I was like, okay, if you want to stay under the radar, that's cool. You're dealing with people across all spectrums, so I can understand if you want to be under the radar. But now you're in the ED role, and you got to get in the driver's seat of articles and speeches and all of this stuff. Oh my goodness. Time just goes by.
Is the show over already?
I mean, we got to wrap it up here in a couple minutes. But now that you're in, do you feel, not just because I lecture you constantly about it, do you feel now that you've moved up in this elevated space that you do need to elevate your game in this space? Or are you like, no, I don't really feel that pressure? Be honest.
Well, honestly, I've been so busy in this position in this first few months of this role that I haven't had time. But now coming on the show, I had to do some preparation and realized that I was just so uncool. I was like, oh my God, I'm so uncool. These people are not going to want to listen to anything I have to say.
Not true.
And so I was like, in understanding and researching other people, I was like, I really should be doing this. And so I'm hearing you now. Sometimes it takes a little while to sink in.
You are now the second person this week that is like, yeah, remember all that lecturing you gave me? Now I get it.
I get it.
The light bulb has turned on.
Sometimes I have to hear it more than once. My husband tells me that all the time.
So in your research, final question before we do have to wrap. In all of your research, whose personal brand did you find that you really were like, wow, this person is giving me life. I love their personal brand.
Well, you know what? I don't know if this will shock you or not, but I watch the Today Show all the time, and I adore Savannah Guthrie.
Oh, yes,
and she has such a great brand where she is promoting her work and what she does on the job, but there's pictures of her kids, so she's promoting things that are happening in her own personal life. She's got a book that she's talking about, and she's a lawyer, so she has some really great insight as well. So it's the combination that I really enjoy about her. So I think I would want to emulate that.
Right. And she is a perfect example of a woman who is not fluff, but she's not, hard as nails.
Right.
She is, when you look at her stuff, it's genuine, it's authentic, and you feel as if you are seeing a narrative of her life. It's not just fact. It's a narrative. Yeah. And this is what I stress all the time. It should feel like you're seeing a window into their world. Like if you saw them on the street, don't you feel like if you saw her on the street,
I know
I know you.
Right, the same with Hoda. I know them both. I want to be their best friends.
I do love Hoda.
I know.
I do want to be Hoda's best friend. Right. Mostly because of our genuine love of country music, but that's here.
Yes, and Blake Shelton too. I adore him.
I'm not on board with him.
And his cute little plaid shirts.
I don't know. There's just something about him that I'm not on board with him, but everything else with her, I'm definitely on board with. But You were a good sport. Thank you for getting in the hot seat so that I could share your lack of personal brand with everybody.
Sorry, guys. We're not having too much to tell you, but
we are officially out of time, and thank you all of you for being good sports out there during our what was essentially a 50-minute giggle session. We really truly appreciate you for that. Tune in next week when I have Washington Valor player Tracy Belton on the show. Super excited to chat with him about all things AFL and what's going on over with the Valor. But if you would like to join the conversation, I always encourage you to join with us on Twitter at LT Brand Radio and on Instagram at Let's Talk Personal. I am Frances Reimers. If you would like to talk with me, you can do so on Instagram at Firestarter CEO and on Twitter at Your Firestarter. Thanks again. See you next week.
See you
Bye-bye.
guys. Bye.